Hi everyone, this is Nathan from Snap and welcome to another of our Snap XMP webinars. Today we're going to be looking at your analysis in Snap and we're going to be focusing on producing charts. This follows on from last month's webinar, which was based around producing tables in Snap. If you weren't able to catch that one, I would certainly advise searching it out on the support hub, as really a chart is just a table in disguise. Before we begin, let's have a quick look at what analysis actually means. Often the idea of analysis just involves throwing a spreadsheet of data at someone, but is this really analysis? Numbers in a spreadsheet won't necessarily give you the whole picture, as questions may be routed out for some respondents, along with different answers perhaps being masked out based on previous answers. There's a real danger that in the wrong hands, an innocent Excel spreadsheet of data could be misinterpreted, and that data may be used to guide your planning of future projects or business decisions. Analysis is about drawing out the key information and presenting it in a way that is clear and unambiguous. So what can we do to help? In short, we can tabulize and chart your data, pointing people to the key information. We can use tables and charts to compare results for different areas or different demographics, ordering the data to make it easier to read, and also filtering in and out key areas of focus. With Snap, we can add scoring systems to your questions, which is particularly useful if you have rating type questions. This allows us to display a mean or average score across different question sets and sectors. As well as providing useful information to your colleagues and clients, producing your analysis in Snap also has the key benefit of the data always being up to date. If instead you're exporting your data and producing your tables and charts outside of Snap, these tables and charts are only going to contain the data that was available at the time of that export. In Snap, you can build your tables and charts before your project has even gone live, and they will be updated as and when data starts to trickle in. Okay, let's head into the software to make a start. I'm going to be using a survey which you may be familiar with if you've joined us for any of our recent webinars. It's about attendees at a conference and contains a range of different question types. My survey has 160 people who have responded. So if I was to export my data into Excel, then I would just get 160 rows of data. But today we're going to be picking out a few of the questions and look to build some charts. And to begin with, I'm just going to do a quick preview of the survey just to show you some of the questions we'll be using. So it's a fairly straightforward survey. It's got a couple of sort of simple yes/no type sort of single response questions in there. There's some multiple response questions. This one's actually a map controller at the same time, where we can choose more than one option. Got some rating style questions, which we can look at quite a bit today. There's some multiple response questions where they can choose as many options as they wish. And we've also got a quantity response question where we're asking people sort of how much they spent. And then towards the end, there's some demographic questions which we're making use of, sort of age and where people attended, etc. Plus there's a single response map control. So nothing too exciting, just a little bit of everything. But if I move back into the software, and we can close down the questionnaire design window, and if I go straight up to my charts icon. Now with charts we have a number of different chart styles available. They're available in the drop down menu, but if I was to click on select, it pops up with a quick thumbnail of all the different chart styles that we offer in Snap. You can also create your own and modify these and save them as your own styles as well. But just to confirm, these are just thumbnail images. They're not using actual your data. It's just to give you an indication of what the different chart styles might look like. Down the bottom, we've also got some color schemes. So you can see we've got a 3-point color scheme going good to bad, and equally there's the equivalent bad to good color scheme. And at the bottom, there's also some Excel color schemes. So I'm going to start off with just a really simple bar counts. And if I click OK, And for those of you that are completely new to the analysis side of Snap, we basically have the analysis and the break, which is where we input which questions we're talking about. And I'm just going to very quickly pop back to my PowerPoint a second. So as I said, for those that might be more used to using perhaps Excel, then you're more used to using probably your X and your Y axes. We have the analysis and break on the left hand side. So the analysis is your X axis with the data going across, and the break is your Y axis with the data going down. And you can see in the middle I've got a simple table with age and gender. So yes, it's the age question in the analysis and the gender question in the break. But as I said, really a chart is just a table in disguise. So the equivalent chart is the one on the right hand side, where obviously we no longer have rows and columns. We just have, well, in my case, bars. But let's head back into the software. So I'm going to start off just by looking at question 2, which is how often did you attend? As I said, I'm leaving on bar counts, and if I click apply, really simple chart, 4 different bars, 4 different colours, and we've got our legend at the side. We may wish to put labels on our bars, so we can simply drop down the style chooser, or again I could click on select, but I'm just going to use the drop down. I'm just going to add some labels. So that will simply add labels to each of the bars. To make it a little bit easier to read, at the moment we're having to look at the different bars and then look over at the legend on the right hand side to see what they all mean. So we may decide to transpose the chart. And if this was a table, transpose will essentially be turning the rows into columns and the columns into the rows. So basically switching the analysis and break over. In a chart, it tends to make things just a little bit easier to read, depending on which questions you're looking at. You can see today it's taken my legend and just popped it below each of my bars instead. And just to confirm, if I go back into the table, you can see at the moment I've got going across. If I transpose it, it'll go down. So you can see, obviously it doesn't quite do the same in a chart, but it's the equivalent action in the background. We might want to look at percentages. So I've got a drop down menu and we've got bar percent and bar percent labeled. But what we just need to be really careful here is that this is just formatting. The actual data in the background is hiding in that table underneath. So the table is calculating counts at the moment. So we need to switch it to make sure the table is calculating percentages as well as looking like a percent. Okay. We could introduce a second question. So I might take question 15, which is my age question, and apply that one. Now, in my survey today, my age question's actually got 6 different categories, and because of that, my chart's starting to get quite busy. So I'm actually going to make use of a derived variable, which is going to simplify this age question into 3 categories. So if I go into my variables window, so I've got an age derived variable which I've created already. Just move that out of the way. So this is basing its data on the original question, question 15, and anyone who chose the first 2 options, so in my case 16 to 25 and 26 to 35, is going to go into that category. Anyone who chose the 3rd and 4th will go into that category, and anyone who chose the last 2 will go into the 56 plus. So I'm going to have a 3-point scale rather than my original 6 points. So I'll just switch question 15 to be age and apply that one. Again, we may decide that actually the most important thing here is the different categories, the age categories. So I could take the transpose off. So that's now switched it across. So now I've got my different age bandings across the bottom and then broken down by how often people attend. Where we just need to be a little bit careful is what data this is actually telling us, because at the moment it's the blue bars, so they're adding up to 100%, so the 20%, the 50% and the 30%, and likewise all of the green bars add up to 100%. Where really if we wanted the age categories across the bottom like I got today, I'd probably want the first 4 categories to add up to 100% and then the second 4 to add up to 100%. So rather than the categories in Q2 in the analysis adding up, I want the categories in the break, so it should be break percents. Equally, if I took the transpose, if if I tick transpose again to reverse it, that's when again at the moment it's all the blues that are adding up. So again, I probably want to switch it back to analysis percents. So it's just making sure that we're calculating the right data. And again, sometimes it's easier to see that in a table. So quite often I would quickly flip it back to a table where it's sometimes easier to look at the data, make sure we're happy with the data, and then pop it back into a chart second. Okay, let's have a look at one of our bigger questions. So today I've got question 7, which is which facilities did you use? So I'll build a brand new chart. So look at Q7. Again, I'm going to leave it on bar percent label to begin with. So we just need to make sure that we're ticking percents again. We've got the same issue where that is actually a little bit sort of too rainbow-like with all our different colours, and it's quite hard to sort of see which the bars relate to. So the quick easy fix would be to transpose it. But when you're doing quite a large chart like this, you have got the issue that potentially, depending on how long your labels are, you're going to sort of be having overlapped labels. So in that instance, I would probably choose one of our horizontal ones. So this is a bar percent labelled. We've got horizontal bar percent labelled, and it's got the word transposed on as well. So there's one without labels, one with labels, so we'll stick with the labels. Again, it's matching up the label names with the tick boxes below, and if we apply that one, realistically we probably want to order this chart, so we can either order it alphabetically or numerically, so using the base. And we may have a need to perhaps pick out the top 5 performing areas, so focusing on what you need to focus on. So I can choose the top columns. I'm going to say 5. Just bearing in mind that I've actually got a joint top 5. So my reception desk and breakout areas is both 75. So when I say top 5, it's actually going to give me a top 6 in this instance. And as with any tables and charts, or any reports in general, to be honest, we can filter our data. So I could look at question number 1, which is, have you been to a seminar with us before? So if I say 1, which I think is yes, so these are all the people who have attended before. If I now change that to no, number 2, then looking at all the people that haven't attended before. Let's turn our attention now to a rating type question, so a sort of a satisfaction style question. So today I have question 5, A, B, C and D, asking people to rate things on a scale of very poor, in fact very good to very poor. So A tilde Q5D, remembering that the tilde, the symbol in the middle, is just the equivalent of the word to. And for this one, I'm going to stick with one of the horizontal ones, but I'm going to choose a horizontal stacked one, and I'm going to stick with the percentages. So it says percent, so I'll tick percent. It says transposed, so I'll do the same and click apply. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that these bars all end slightly differently. So the first and the third bar are matching up, and the second and the fourth one are matching up. Basically, we've got a little bit of rounding up and down going on here. So the first and the third, I think, add up to 101, and the second and the fourth add up to 100%. So sometimes you might need to go up to cells. So the default setting in Snap is to have 0 decimal places. So I'm going to set my table in the background to calculate to 1 decimal place. My actual chart styling by default will not show the decimal places though, because again, that may get quite messy on screen. It's not to say that we couldn't turn them on, those decimal places on, if we wanted to, but it would probably be quite messy, quite congested. So this is a sort of satisfaction style question, very good to very poor. It's quite popular to add a colour scheme to this, a sort of red, amber, green sort of traffic light colour scheme. So again, I can drop down my menu, and at the top we've got a number of different colour point scales. So I'm going to go 5-point scale. Now, I'm going green to red because I'm going positive to negative. We've also given you a negative to positive, so red to green. Go with the green to red this time. And you can see it's starting to get easier and easier to work out how good or bad things are. Now this is using the original sort of 5-point scale, the very good to very poor, which was used in the actual survey itself. Again, when it comes to analysis, often we want to try and simplify it. So what we could do is introduce a derived variable, which would turn it into maybe a 3-point scale. So taking the two positives, two very good and very good, to turn it into a positive, the OK would be turned into a neutral, and the two negatives into a negative category. So again, I've got one I prepared already. So those are my original questions, question 5A, B, and C and D. We come down to V5A, B, and C and D. I go into V5A. Again, it's grabbing its data from the original questionnaire, on the original question 5A. And as I said, the good and the very good 1 and 2 is positive. The number 3, the OK, is neutral, and poor and very poor is negative. And as I said, I've got the equivalent V4A all the way down to V5A all the way down to V5D. So if I switch that out, instead of being Q5A, if I make it V5A, and then we're starting to simplify it even more. Now, obviously a moment ago I applied a 5-point colour scheme to this, so it's actually just taking the first 3 colours, which doesn't really work. So I'm going to now pop on the 3-point colour scheme. So again, when we're starting to think about reporting, we're thinking about trying to draw out all the important information and get rid of some of the background noise. On that note, we could start to think about a scoring system. So if I close this one down, we can apply, thinking back to our original 5-point scale of very poor to very good, in fact very good to very poor, we can apply a score, and to do that I'm going to create a weight. So I'll create a new weight. I'll leave it as just the name of WT1, and I'm just going to give it a name of score 5 to 1, because remember my first category is actually the positive, so I'm going to allocate code 1, which is my very good, as 5 points, code 2, which is my good, as 4 points, and then if I just keep tabbing down, eventually I get to number 5, which is my very poor, and that's going to be worth 1 point. If your scale was actually going very good to very poor, sorry, very poor to very good, then actually you wouldn't need to include this weight, because actually Snap will assume that answer 1 is worth 1 point and answer 5 is worth 5 points. But today I do need to reverse it. So that's called WT1. If I save that one, I'm going to create a new chart. So again, Q5A to Q5D. For the chart style, I'm going to choose another horizontal one, this time horizontal bar counts label transposed. So remember to transpose it, and I'm going to compare my data based on question 1, which is again, have you been to one of our conferences before? Yes or no? And we now need to, we're not calculating counts or percents, we're working out what the average score is based on that 1 to 5 or 5 to 1. So what is the mean, or what is the average score? And my scoring system was called WT1, and you can see it's the mean. Now, again, just based on something we looked at earlier, we have everything looking like it's sort of 4, 4, 3, 3, and 4. Actually, if we were to turn on the decimal places, this time for the means rather than the percentages, so the table in the background again is calculating some different decimal places, so that's probably 4.1 and that's maybe 4.2, but again what we just need to do is potentially edit the formatting on this chart style. So if I click OK, I double click on the number 4, Just need to be careful. There's obviously lots of different bars here. I've clicked on the blue bar, the number 4 for the speaker. If I'm not careful, that is just going to edit that one. So I want to do all of the yeses and at the same time all of the no's. So if I hold down my control key, I can then go into my formatting and set that to 2 decimal places. While I'm here, at the moment I can't tell what these bars are, so I'm going to turn on the legend. Okay. So here we can see the average score for people who had attended before for the speaker was 3.9. The average score for those who hadn't attended before was a little less, whilst there's a much bigger difference with the venue. Looks like the people who had attended the venue before effectively weren't that well, were less impressed by a larger amount. Now this was looking at breaking your data down into those people who said yes or no. You might decide, actually, I'm not interested in the yeses or no, I just want to know generally what did people think about us. If I was to take the break away and click apply, it's going to get a little bit upset, and that's because when it's looking at mean scores, it does need something in the break. So I'm just going to throw that over there for the time being. And if I go into my variables window, I've created another derived variable called all. And this is a question which no one's going to see in the survey because it's a derived variable, but I'm using this word true, which captures everyone. So basically, as long as someone's filled in the survey and they press submit, it doesn't matter whether they're happy or sad, male or female, young or old, just as long as they click the link, press submit, they will count towards this variable, this all variable. You can see all 160 people are there. So in the break, if I now put all and apply that one, we can now see the average score for everybody. Again, we might sort it this time based on the mean. And now that we're just doing everyone, I don't really need the all respondents, so I can double click on that one and just hide that. Okay, so you can see it's nice and easy to chop and change what you're looking at. Another idea that we can do using the weight is to work out the percentage of people who were positive. So again, this is about focusing on what you need to focus on, not worrying about the number of people who were negative or were clicking OK, just the people who were happy. So again, I'm going to create a new weight. This time I'm going to call it positive. And I'm basically saying for answer number 1, which is very good, I'm going to give it 100% the power. So we're interested in those people. For answer number 2, the good, I'm also going to say 100% of power. So we're interested in those. For the OK, we're not interested. The good, for the poor, and the very poor equally, we're not interested. So we're just focusing on the 2 options we do want to focus on. And again, that's called WT2. I produce a new one. So again, Q5A to Q5D. This time I'm going to choose a similar one, but this time because we're talking about the percent positive, I'll choose the percent one. Still looking at the data for everyone. Still transposing it, and we're still talking about the average. So this time WT2. Again, if I sort that one top to bottom based on the average, the mean. So again, this is all about removing the information which is just getting in the way. So if we compare this chart to one we produced earlier, so we produced AN3. We've got very, very similar data. In fact, we've got exactly the same data, obviously. So for the speaker, it's 69% and 69. For the workshop, 67, 67, etc., etc. These are reversed because it's top to bottom. But again, it's about removing all this background information and just focusing on what needs to be focused on. So just to reiterate, when you're choosing your chart styles, the styling doesn't affect the data. This is just saying what does it look like, and you're using these long and often strange names as a way of guiding you of what to tick below. So if it says percents, tick percents. If it says transposed, tick transposed. Okay, just got one final example to show you. If you're perhaps tracking data over a period of time, then it might be useful to use a line chart. So I'm going to look at line percent and look at question 5A and question 5D. And today we have a question, well, in fact, in the background of every survey you have id.date. What I've then done is created a derived variable. In fact, I've created two, but I'm just going to use one today. But I've got one called date, which is taking the data from id.date, and it's picking out the different months. So the month equals 1 is January, 2 is February, etc. I'm actually going to be using the one called quarter. So I've got 2 years worth of data in here, so I'm picking out the first 3 months and the year, and you can see for 2 years I've got 8 different quarters, so 4 quarters for each year. So I'm going to break it down by quarter. Again, we're going to be talking about the percent positive, so WT2. So it's just quite a nice way of sort of tracking your data over a particular time period, because you can see sort of the highs and the lows and where things get better and get worse. Okay, to finish off, we're going to quickly pop into Snap Online to have a quick look at how your charts might be accessed by colleagues, clients, or just yourself. Before I do log in though, if I just go into my list of saved tables and charts, by default, all of your tables and charts will automatically be available in Snap Online, but you might decide actually, for whatever reason, you don't want everything to be available. So I, for example, might double click on question or AN4. And if I go into properties, down the bottom, we've just got a drop down for available, and I can just simply set that to no. Now, today, I'm just simply showing you how to sort of make them available or not make them available. There is additional functionality which allows you to make certain tables, charts and reports available for different people depending upon their access level. Okay, I'll just synchronize everything we've done today. And then if I log into Snap Online, hopefully it hasn't logged out, but if I click on my survey, you can see I've got my 4 reports which are built into each and every survey, and there's 8 tables and charts. I actually click on the analyze. So those are the standard 4 summary reports built into every survey. I go to tables and charts. I've got the charts that we're looking at. So we produced AN1 to AN6 today. If you remember, we set AN4 to not be visible. And if I click on a chart, it will open up. And if you remember, just to confirm, any tables and charts that we open up, just like in desktop, will always be using the very, very latest data. You might have a need to filter your data. So if I go to filter and context, I can apply a filter to this one. So today I might just say Q1 equals 1. So that's everyone who has attended an event before. If I apply that one. In fact, I'm not going to apply that one. I'm going to do a slightly different one. I've already got that one on this actual chart already. So I'll do it based on age. So if I say age equal 1, that's, remember, the derived variable I created earlier. So this is now the data for the age group of 16 to 35. Again, it's already been filtered previously by they've not attended before, and it's working out the top 5. Now, there may be certain filters questions that you need to filter on a regular basis, or realistically you might be giving access to colleagues or clients, so you can't really be expecting colleagues or clients to be typing on all these expressions. So I've actually also set up some predefined filters. So if I click on the plus, I've set 3 different questions which I might like to filter on. So I'm going to filter on venue today. I'm going to choose Cardiff. So you can see it's obviously much easier to filter. I'll also filter on my date question whilst I'm here. So date of interview. And I'll just choose a particular date range. So I'm just going to go for the 1st of May up to perhaps the 30th of September. And again, apply that one. Okay, so again, there is a lot more that we can do in Snap Online with regards to sharing these charts and other analyses. More information is available on our support hub about this, as well as in some of our previous webinars, which you can access also on our support hub. Hopefully that has given you a little introduction to charting your data in Snap XMP. You've seen that it's nice and easy to build simple charts, plotting multiple questions together, and also filtering your data as required. We looked at also introducing your scoring systems to simplify the output, reporting one single figure in isolation rather than having to go searching in amongst all the information that you didn't need. This really has been the very tip of the iceberg in terms of the functionality available for analysing your data within Snap. In next month's webinar, we're going to start to look at how these tables and charts can be added to a report, which you can run off at any time or date. On screen now are a couple of QR codes which will take you off to some of our previous webinars, which cover filter expressions in more details, as well as more detailed information on the analysis available in Snap as a whole. These can be accessed along with a whole host of additional resources on our support hub. And finally, if you have got a spare 2 minutes, I'd be very grateful if you wouldn't mind taking 2 minutes to fill in the survey, which you can be accessed via the QR code on the right. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.